There's a hole in my roof. Should probably fill that with something. Okay, so I'm up on the top of my 2011 Sprinter van. The gaping hole here in the roof actually was from an older roof vent that I had in here. I installed it soon after I bought the van, so it's been in there for a few years. And when I did it, I just went to Home Depot, grabbed whatever sealant, and didn't do that good a job, and after a few years it started leaking. So today the plan is I bought a new roof vent, slightly nicer one than I had in there before, and we're gonna seal it up properly, rather than just going to Home Depot and buying whatever silicone or whatever I can find. I actually bought the stuff recommended by the manufacturer of the roof vent, so hopefully we can keep this from leaking, and I won't have to replace this. There was a little bit of rust around it, not bad. It was just a little bit of surface rust, but that's how it always starts. So last night I did sand that down, got it down to bare metal, and painted it because I want to make sure that it's all sealed up and we don't get any any more rust in there. So let's take a look at what we're going to install in here. So what I'm installing is the Maxxair, what do they call it? The Maxxair Deluxe fan. Certainly not a paid promotion or anything. I have no connection to the company. It's just simply the one that I like the design of it from the pictures I've seen, and I've seen some good reviews, so I'm going to give it a try. There comes in a couple different models, basically with and without remote control. I see no need in a remote control in my van. I can reach it easily enough, and that's just one more thing to lose. So this is the basic model without the remote control. So we're going to install that, and as I mentioned, my last one leaked, so we're going to make sure this one doesn't leak. So I'm following all their recommendations. I've got some butyl tape, and I've got some Dycar 501 sealant, which this is what the manufacturer recommends for keeping this leak-free. So we will hope that'll work. I'll put links to, I got all this on Amazon. I'll put links to that if you're curious and want to see prices and whatnot. Haven't even opened it up yet, so let's take a look at what's in the box. All right, make sure we got everything out of there. Chuck that out of the way. Out of the way. Now, one thing that surprises me is, since they recommend it needs the butyl tape, why don't they just include that? But it is one thing you need to buy separately. But the important thing is the fan itself. Got our top unit here. We have the inner flange that's going to trim out the inside of the van. And we've got the piece that actually bolts down to the van itself. Now, one thing, I did look over the instructions of this online, and they do recommend a thickness of, I think, at least 1.1 inches of the roof. My old one was just screwed down to the sheet metal, which of course may have been part of the reason that it leaked a little bit. So first thing I need to do is I need to trim out around the inside of the opening of the van with some wood so that I've got that 1.1 inches. So let's see about doing that now. All right, so I've cut two pieces, just 2x4 construction lumber, 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches by 17.5 inches, and same thing, 14.5 inches, which together will make a nice square, which should give me just a slightly larger than the opening in the roof of the van, assuming I did everything right. That is 14.5 by, slightly less. How did I manage that? These pieces are a little short. How did I manage that? Cut. All right, now I'm going to show my mistakes. I cut these a little bit short. I thought I cut them 14.5. They're like 14 and, I don't know, a tiny bit more. So I'm going to cut two more pieces like this, and then we'll be ready to go. Because when I mess up, I show my mistakes. Okay, now, yeah, these are 14.5 now. So when I put it together, I do have ugly knot in there, but I don't think that's going to really cause me any issues. I'm going to screw this together with a little bit of glue in it, and on the inside then I should have about 14.5 by, of course this is 14.5 because that's how long that piece is. Don't need much. I don't want to make a mess with this. Well, I had to make a quick run to the hardware store, but that was actually kind of nice because it's actually pretty hot today, so a little break to go for a drive in my air-conditioned truck helped out nicely. So the double stick tape, like I said, really it's just so that I can hold it up there in place. Once the screws are in for the roof vent, they're going to go into the wood, so that'll hold everything together. Okay, let's go stick it up in the van. All right, so peel all the tape off here. Try to center this halfway decent. Now I don't have my final headliner in here. I had something in place before that I wasn't all that happy with, so I'm going to be redoing that anyway. So the thickness on this, it's just kind of ballparked. And the opening's just a little bit bigger than the hole in the roof. And we're going to clamp this together for now until it gets a chance to really stick on. I think that's going to work. So this is the piece that goes on the top of the van. This is the bottom of it. The rest of the fan screws into these clips here. So now I need to put some of this butyl sealing tape on the bottom of it that will sandwich between the roof of the van and this mounting flange. It's also going to get some caulking sealant, but this is the first layer of it. Now I'm going to go ahead and peel back the tape. This stuff is nice and moldable, so I should be able to squish it together in the corners so that there's no gap and it seals up really well. All right, back onto the roof. Now this is something that is not really mentioned very well in the instructions, but in the bag of hardware there's 3 different kinds of screws, and it's important that you keep these straight. But if you look at the numbers, how many they give you of each one, you'll figure out what they are, but just be careful to lay them out and get them figure out what's what first. There are 16 of these screws. The ones that there's 16 of, those are for fastening it down to the roof of the van. There's 4 with a white painted head. Those are for attaching the interior trim piece when it's done. And then there's 4 other screws that are slightly shorter but slightly fatter than the ones that hold it to the roof. These actually hold the fan together, holds the main part of the fan to that mounting flange. So you know, it'd be pretty easy if you're in a hurry not paying attention to use one of these in place of one of these. And I suspect if you use one of these longer screws to try to attach the fan to the base, it's probably going to go too far and cause some damage. So lay them out ahead of time, figure out what's what so you don't use the wrong screw. Okay, back up on the roof of the van. This should be stuck on pretty well. So I should be able to remove my clamps and that'll stay in place. However, as I'm driving screws in, I suspect it's going to try to push that down. But I think I've come up with a plan for that. Okay, now the way this goes in here, the mounting tabs go to the sides. And yep, my hole's big enough. Oh, one other thing I did want to mention about this. On a Sprinter van, it's just barely fits. These ribs here are just wide enough that the flanges fit. So as long as you've got it centered, there's one spot towards the back of the van, one spot a little more towards the front of the van where clearly they intended for something like this installed, and it just fits. So what I'm going to do, set that in place to where I'm happy with it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use these just as clamping cauls. So let's do the shorter ones here. And I can lightly put my clamps back in place just to keep it from pushing that interior trim back out while I'm driving the screws in. Once I get a couple screws in, it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, now these screws, they do not appear to be self-drilling screws. So I am going to drill some pilot holes for them. I've got a drill bit just a little smaller than the screws. I'm going to try to not drill too deep so that it gets a good bite into the wood. But this way I'll have good connection. I'll be able to get through the roof of the van, because I don't think these screws would really drill through the metal very well. And to make sure I didn't use the wrong screws, I have just the ones for mounting this up here with me. I left the others down on the bench so I don't accidentally put in the wrong screws. Now, these don't need to be horribly tight. You want to squeeze that butyl a little bit, but you don't want to deform anything. So I'll probably go back through, and I'm going to just get some screws in now, and then I can go back through and tighten them later on. And it goes without saying, don't fall off your van. That would ruin your day. Well, now that I have the corners in, I think I can take my clamps off, drill the other holes, screw it down, and then we can get the caulking gun out and seal it up for good. All right, they're all in loosely. Now I'm gonna just make sure they're all snugged up about the same amount. And like I said, you want it so that it's compressing that seal, but not to the point where it's deforming anything. All right, we're getting into the home stretch, which is good because it is hot up here. It's nice to have this high roof barn where I can do my work, but you know, it gets me out of the sun, but it's hot in here and kind of stuffy. So I'm ready to be done. So there's a couple spots where the butyl has squeezed out from underneath it. So I'm just gonna trim that so it's nice and clean around there. And now we've got our Dicor sealant. So it's stuff they recommend. It's, let me get it out of the caulking gun here. I'll get a close-up of this maybe separately, but it's Dicor 501. This is what the manufacturer of this recommends. I just used, last time I started out with normal silicone, and then when that started leaking, I used some sort of roof sealant because I was in a rush, and I grabbed what I could out of Home Depot, and it just made a mess and didn't last. So hopefully this will last. First thing we need to do is we need to make sure we've got a dab of this on top of every screw. So just a nice glob there. This is supposed to be self-leveling, so it should kind of flow out on its own. Alright, I have a nice big hornet flying around me. Hopefully he has better things to do than to sting me. Okay, so we have a glob, some of them more of a glob than others around there. And now we just want to do a nice bead all around the edge. And no water's ever going to get in here. That is the hope, at least. Now, I don't know if you can see on camera real well or not, but this is starting to flow out on its own pretty well. It is self-leveling, so it should flow for a bit. and level out. So I'm just going to look over everything, make sure every screw head is completely covered. I got one here that could use a little bit more. And make sure there's no gaps around the outside. Alright, now I'm going to give that some time to set up, because I know if I try, a little more on this screw head. I know if I try doing anything else right now, I'm just going to get this stuff all over myself and spread all over the van. So let's let it sit up. Well, I've let this sit for, I don't know, an hour or two. It's still soft, but it's not sticky, which is good. I should be able to do the rest of this without making a mess. So now, we actually mount the fan on top. Now, this needs to be open, and this knob, it kind of locks down in place. It pops out a little bit, and we can turn this. And if you open it all the way, we can access the screw holes. So open it all the way. We're going to point it towards the back of the van, obviously. And it should fit right in place. I do like the mounting system that they use for this fan. With that flange, it's a lot easier to get that mounted down and then sealed up. And then this hood, for rain coming straight down, I don't think there's going to be any concern about leaks. And with all my sealant around there, hopefully it doesn't leak around the edge. Hopefully it lasts for years and years. The old one, it's been, what, 6 years? So for most of that time it wasn't leaking. It was just over time it started to leak. So once it's in place, there's those other 4 screws that I showed you earlier. They just go in the sides, go into those metal clips on the flange. Now this one doesn't want to line up. Okay, I got to push down just a little more. There's a little rubber gasket in the bottom of this, and it looks like you got to push down just a little bit, and then it lines up. And with that, I am done on the roof. Other than cleaning up all my tools and junk. So here you can see when it's down, it covers the hole very nicely. And really the reason I bought it is because even when it's up, rain coming straight down isn't going to go in it because the vent blows out towards the back and down of the hood. So it should be nicely waterproof. Should be able to drive down the highway and have air suck out on its own even without the fan. And should stay nice and waterproof. So I think this is going to work out well for me. Well, unfortunately, that's about as far as I can take it today. As you can see, the interior of the van sort of a work in progress or a rework in progress. I've torn some stuff out because I'm redoing things, and I've got a lot of projects coming up on this, so definitely subscribe if you want to see more of the build out of the van. But I do at least have to see if this works. So I've just got a RC airplane battery here to temporarily hook this up and see if it blows any hair. Okay, heard a little beep. Oh, can't really get these wires to stick in. And there it goes. Much quieter than the old fan. Feels like it pulls some pretty good air. I can switch the direction and it can blow in as well, which is really what I need right now. Okay, I do like the reverse. It actually waits for it to come all the way down. Oh, that feels nice on a hot day. Blows air on me really well. Good air movement. Should be waterproof. That's going to work great. So I've got various plans for the van. One thing I've ordered is a solar panel, so it'll be great on a hot day. If it's parked out in the sun, I won't be using up my battery. Of course, I'm going to redo my headliner. I ripped the old headliner out that wasn't working out real well. I'm going to build some cabinets in here. Definitely subscribe if you want to see all that.